evening, friends. How is everyone in this room tonight? Good evening, everybody. How's everyone in this room tonight? Listen, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal that this is a moment in time. We're just going to take the next hour and a half to two to really have an enjoyable moment with each other, learn with each other, understand what path we can take together, and aim for a goal that matters to all of us. We're in this amazing city. Even if it's been a rainy day, you are here. And today we will have the privilege of hearing some remarkable leaders who have advanced health give us their inputs, their insights, share from their experience. We will have the privilege of also hearing from distinguished guests, and it should be an evening hopefully worthy of remembering, so we can go back and do the work that our communities so deserve. I would like to thank and acknowledge certainly all Mercy Ships and Operation Smile for their willingness to come together and partner. We are members of the Global Surgery, Obstetrics, Trauma, and Anesthesia community, trying to advance the care of children, mothers, fathers, communities around the world. We have some wonderful leaders, once again, of the global health community and global surgical community who will share some time with us. We have our friends from the World Health Organization here representing the multilateral team. We also have the privilege, and we really thank you for being here, Dr. Douglas Mombeshora, Minister of Health and Childcare of Zimbabwe, Dr. Aspek Manganitse. Thank you for putting me in this spot without practice, who's our Permanent Secretary of Health for Zimbabwe. And we also have tonight the privilege of welcoming His Excellency Ambassador Nesbert Samasu, also as well of Zimbabwe. We also have members of the private sector. So tonight we talk about synergies between academia, multilaterals, NGOs, as different parts of society. But we also welcome and appreciate the engagement of private sector, because all of us together ultimately are looking for a view and options that support the ministers of health who are in charge of guiding the health for their communities. I want to begin by welcoming a good friend who has spent a lot of time not only in care delivery and engagement, but in academia. So he's a teacher, he's a surgeon, he's an author, and it isn't only about the research articles he's written, but about the books that call us to act on many needs of people in health. I would love to welcome Dr. Mark Scheim to get us started. Mark, welcome. We're waiting for you.
Good afternoon, distinguished ministers, Your Excellency, everybody here in the audience. Thanks for coming to this side event. As Ruben said, done jointly between Mercy Ships and OpSmile. My name is Mark. I am the International Chief Medical Officer for Mercy Ships. Many of you will have known of us. You've seen some flyers outside. Mercy Ships is an organization that's been around since 1978. We deliver surgery, training, education, Tonight, though, it's not about Mercy Ships. Tonight, we have a spectacular panel for what I know will be a stimulating discussion, but I also hope will be a bit of a challenging discussion and maybe even a paradigm shifting discussion. Have you all ever had a conversation with someone in which they say something and it just kind of sticks with you and bounces around your head and it changes your paradigm? To a large degree, this side event comes from a discussion that I had 15 years ago with a colleague that some of you in this room know, Dr. Robert Riviello. Riviello is the head of the Program in Global Surgery and Social Change at Harvard. And 15 years ago, Robert said that he had the impression that the NGO sector, multilaterals, and academia viewed each other with mutual distrust and disdain. Strong words. And I spent this week in Geneva just having an ear open to listen for those signs of mutual distrust and disdain. And unfortunately, they're very easy to find. So 4 examples just from the last week here in Geneva. And I'm going to start with that lovely slice of humanity called Twitter. At the weekend, I saw a post on Twitter that said, academics only care about the marginalized if they can plug them into Stata. Yeah. Ouch. On the other hand, a research-oriented colleague of mine over coffee said, you know, research is actually the real advocacy as opposed to advocacy. At the side event 2 days ago, Nobajit Roy reminded us just how difficult it is for the on-the-ground surgeon to even get the attention of the academic surgeon. And then example number 4, at the side event on Monday during the cocktail hour, someone said to me, if interventions on the ground aren't centrally coordinated and centrally controlled, then they will fail and they will do more harm than good. Now, you can and should argue with every single one of those statements. And depending on where you work in the global health space, you probably felt that ouch for one of those statements. And my point here isn't to make you all feel ouch, isn't to raise hackles. My point really is to talk about both how excited I am for the conversation we're about to have and how important this conversation that we're about to have is. Because on the ground implementers, NGOs, academia, the multilaterals, we have a lot to give to each other and a lot that we can learn from each other. And what I'm hoping this panel does today is it highlights the synergies across these groups, the ways that we can work ever closer together for the benefit of the surgical patients worldwide. Because I didn't give you the full Robert Riviello quote. He said, these groups view each other with mutual distrust and disdain. Then he went on and he said, I believe that people who have feet in more than one camp, it is incumbent on us to start to break down these walls. And that's what I'm hoping that we can do tonight. Before I go on, there are a number of people I have to thank. As I said at the beginning, and as Ruben said, this is a joint venture between Mercy Ships and Operation Smile, and would not have happened without the diligent work of a bunch of people. On the Mercy Ship side, I want to thank Lucille Artaud, Aaron Myers, Jonathan Zeely, Kara Tobin, and Dr. Walt Johnson. From the OpSmile side, Amy Lee Potter, Irene Girassa, and Missy DiBona. Missy will be speaking next. I'd also like to thank the Beau Rivage Hotel for hosting us in this gorgeous space and for putting on the reception afterwards. There will be food and wine afterwards, so please continue discussions about developing these synergies over food and wine. And as always, a personal thanks to Ruben Ayala, who will be moderating the panel. Ruben, I consider a colleague and a friend. And when we approached him about doing this jointly, he jumped at the chance to break down those silos as well, to bring our organizations together, to work closer together for the benefit of the surgical patient. With that, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Mercy Ships, thank you for being here. Thank you for participating. And I will turn the mic over to Missy.
Hello there. And on behalf of Operation Smile, it is my extreme honor to welcome you all to this event. For 42 years, Operation Smile has imagined a different world, a better world where children are lifted out of the despair of living with a correctable cleft condition. As any parent in this room can probably well imagine, there are few things more challenging than the feeling of helplessness when a child is faced with a life-altering medical condition. It is in this compassion that Operation Smile was born. Since then, we've built the organization into a solution where every smile matters and every child matters. Through the innovations of surgical techniques, efficiencies in medical training, reduced costs for higher impact, and research collaborations, all at zero cost to patients, we have a network in place that now demands strong engagement with the world. This includes national governments and the communities they serve, academia, nonprofit organizations, the private sector, of course, and multilateral agencies. All have a role in caring for surgical patients. As part of civil society, our medical volunteers have proudly provided surgery and care to hundreds of thousands of patients around the world. We currently conduct surgical programs and related cleft care to strengthen health systems in 37 program countries. With every patient interaction, we're humbled. We're humbled not only by the opportunity to serve, but because we realize that each action brings change. Looking around the room and being here this week, it's easy to be reminded about the power of collaboration and the immense value of partnerships. We recognize everybody here who has walked the path of providing safe surgery, safe anesthesia, medical care, medical excellence. So today represents another kind of moment for us. We're so pleased to thank Drs. Mark Schreim, Walt Johnson, and Mercy Ships for inviting us to co-host this event. We also extend our same thanks to the extraordinary team they have from Lucille, Aaron, Tara, and Jonathan. We thank them for bringing everybody together in this room, all of you. This is a chance for us to commit to each other, to work together, and to do more to advance the human condition. I'm also very pleased to recognize Mediterranean Shipping Company. They're here with us today, and you'll hear from them in a minute. While we discuss collaborations between NGOs, academia, and multilaterals, having the private sector here with us in support of what we do is a very powerful testament to the impact we all have collectively. Days like today do bring change. As Operation Smile launches into our next decade of care, we still dream of a better world. We've committed to treating millions of patients. There is no way we can do this, however, without working with the right partners in the right places for the best and the highest impact. We therefore look forward to working with all of you. We salute what you do, and we stand with you and extend again tremendous thanks to Mercy Ships. You have a very big treat ahead of you with this outstanding panel. And before I turn it over to Daniela from Mediterranean Shipping, I would also like to give her a little bit of credit. When I told her about this event, you looked at me and you said, "Wait a second, wasn't this my idea?" And I said, "Actually, it was." So thanks for doing this. Please come up and say a few words. We're glad to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Melissa. Good evening, honorable guests. It's a very pleasure to be here today and having the opportunity to address you some words. It's incredible to see Mercy Ship from one side and Operation Smile from the other side, because we partner with you since 2011 with both organizations. I think it's incredible that really it was not my idea. It was the idea of Mr. Aponte that say we have to put together Mercy Ship and Operational Smile. And I think that this evening is it's incredible. So I represent the MSC Group. And the MSC Foundation is the corporate foundation of the MSC Group, is the global leader in transportation and logistics. We partner with Operation Smile since, as I told you, 2011. And together we have done events, we have done mobilization of resources, we have done volunteering, and we raise more or less more than 3 million. And with Mercy Ship, we put our knowledge, our resources, the container, the free logistic. Since 2011, we transported more than 650 containers. And this also allows Mercy Ship to focus on something else, because we have done all the logistic. We are doing all the logistic. And 2 years ago, when Don Stevens, the founder of Mercy Ship, came to us asking support for a new ship, because the first ship, the old global Africa Mercy, was very old, we decided to help Mercy Ship to build a ship together. And I'm proud to say that 1 month ago, we signed the contract with the yard, and the ship will be built together with Mercy Ship MSC. And these are concrete examples. When there is a company, when there is a private sample, it's our duty to do something, to put our resources, to have a role, and to help. And when you find the right partners, such as Operation Smile, that is so impactful, what you did, what you do, and Mercy Ship, that it's so incredible what you are doing in Africa. I think it's It's our responsibility to do whatever we can to support this kind of organization. So for me, it's a pleasure, and really congratulations and thank you for letting us help you to do what you are doing. Together we can really do a great impact. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Daniela. Wonderful words, and certainly for your support and I believe that we can change the lives of people together. A few days ago, we were very honored to enjoy just a magnificent event with our Friends of Global Surgery Foundation. And along with our Friends of Global Surgery Foundation, we also had Johnson & Johnson. I think Dr. Ian Walker is also here. We just want to highlight and thank their support. But it is also a wonderful event. There were patients, and I don't want to put them on the spot, but I do want to highlight that having them here, it's an incredible honor, because while we talk a lot about surgical systems, infrastructure, and health workforce, everything we are trying to do, we owe to them, and to their resilience and to their strength and to their struggles, our massive respect and gratitude. I would love to invite, if you mind, the Honorable Dr. Mabishora here to maybe say a few words. And if you might, please, Dr. Mabishora, together with Dr. Marganitze and also with His Excellency Ambassador Nesbert, you can give us a few minutes, and we might put you in the spot for a second, and we'd love to have a few words from you as well. Welcome, Minister of Health, Dr. Mabishora. Your company as well. Check. We're doing a tech check. Okay, very good. Master, would you like to join them? We'll put you on the spot, and the reason we'll do this is because, as we mentioned, so much of this is also driven to look for the synergies that allow for us to hopefully be a good partner to you in your quest to benefit entire countries, entire population. So.
Thank you very much for inviting us to this very important discussion. But if I remember my days in school, especially in high school, this is what would have been called impromptu speech. Yes. Yes, I'm the Minister of Health from the Republic of Zimbabwe. And with me, next to me is our Permanent Secretary, Dr. Maunganidze. Both of us belong to the surgical profession, myself being the human plumber, that is urology. But Mr. Maunganidze here is a general surgeon. So I think he's the one who has dealt more with these issues of especially Operation Smile, where you are dealing with people or children with a cleft palate and cleft lip. In 2022, Zimbabwe became the 5th country in the SADC region to develop and launch its national surgical, obstetric, and anesthesia strategy. We coin it NSOA, which spans the period 2022 to 2025. This NSOAS elaborates key surgical areas of focus, including surgical and anesthesia workforce, infrastructure, equipment and products, healthcare financing, monitoring, evaluation, and research and leadership and governance. Currently, the implementation of this has been facilitated by a catalytic funding to address the service delivery, infrastructure, surgical health workforce, information for decision-making. Over 500 patients have received life-changing surgeries through surgical camps, reducing the number of patients in waiting lists for elective essential surgery. However, there are some gaps which are still huge. Some of these gaps are in leadership and governance. There's lack of surgical, obstetric, and anesthesia coordination unit, which the Minister of Health and Child Care to facilitate in the ministry to facilitate a coordinated response resource mobilization. There's also a gap in service delivery. There's huge surgical backlog, which remains, especially in pediatric hernias. And this now, we are witnessing bookings which are now going into 2026, which is quite bad. Operative volumes remain below 5,000 per 100,000 procedures. There are also gaps in infrastructure. Our district hospitals remain incapacitated with obsolete equipment and theater setups that are not fit for purpose and in response to the growing population. A huge gap also is in human resources. Our surgical, obstetric, and anesthesia specialist ratio is still below the recommended WHO standard. It's 10 to 100,000. There's also severe shortage of theater and ICU nurses, as well as nurse anesthetists, owing to huge brain drain. We call upon the NGOs, multilaterals, academia, and development partners to join Zimbabwe in strengthening health system security in Zimbabwe by availing investments towards provision and improving the capacity to deliver surgical care at the district hospital level as a means to attaining universal health coverage, equitable access, and quality. I think at this stage, let me hand over to my permanent secretary. I think he has got a few words to add as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I think it's good to be here in an environment when people talk about surgery. You might want to know that in low to medium income sort of setups, the focus becomes more for primary health care, more for controlling infectious diseases, and we're coming from the epidemic of COVID. So resources become channeled to those emergencies. And unfortunately, it's at the expense of surgical services. In addition, our personnel will be redistributed to those areas to take care of the infectious diseases and now the non-communicable diseases. And with time, because of the low resource setup, remuneration is not so good for most of the workers. They move across and come to well-resourced areas where the tools of trade are available. Remuneration is better. So our countries then have to mobilize internally to make do with what is available. Just to put it into perspective, the specialists who are available in various disciplines are less than 300 for a population of 16 million. So in some areas, as we are talking of Operation Smile, you will find less than 5 maxillofacial surgeons in the whole country. So this means the burden for surgical services, in particular elective surgery, becomes very huge. In the waiting list for elective surgeries become quite long. In his area of study, those with prosthetic malignancies and so forth, we have to wait for a long time to get surgery done. And we have to make do with long-standing authorization. So I think just in summary, there's real need for our countries to then have a strategic prioritization of use of resources so that we are able to attend to surgical emergencies that arise. In the end, most hospitals end up with just dealing with emergencies and not be able to take care of the elective surgery. And this becomes a huge burden for our systems. We are happy that there are partners, multilateral and otherwise, who are able to come and sometimes do camps and facilitate for mopping up and making sure we reduce our waiting list. And we're thankful for this platform to highlight such burden of surgery. And I think this speaks to most of the countries, like I said, in the low to middle-income economies. So a strategy which takes care of the surgical, obstetric in particular, and anesthesia to make sure that these countries can prioritize surgery becomes very key. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if Ambassador, if you like, His Excellency, if you'd like to also add a few thoughts. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I would also want to add my voice and thank the organizers, Mercy Ships and Operation Smile, for this very important gathering, and to really say I have seen what this kind of operation can do, transform, to change the lives of people who otherwise would have been in a much more disadvantaged situation in my country. The program that has run has really been one that gave satisfaction and confidence to a lot of people. The minister has already mentioned 500 patients who benefited from such programs in the country. I just want to propose one perhaps angle that we may need to consider in the, for instance, in engaging and creating partnerships towards this kind of operations. We in Zimbabwe, especially from the ministry where I come from, which is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it has a very strong portfolio of engaging our diaspora. And one of the things that we have been pushing very hard is for them to be able to participate in such programs and come home using their skills, their networks, their partnerships, to come and assist. First, at the moment, we are actually mapping out our diaspora, and I think it would be a good idea if we could maybe link some of them with initiatives like this one, to be able to support patients as well as assist in the advocacy, in addition to the actual support physically and operations that may be required. I think involving our diaspora, for example, is a very good idea. We could maybe see how we can work it out in a much more effective manner. But there has been this push to get the diaspora who have a number of we have been exposed to a lot of skills, training, experience, and they can really make a difference. Because they have organized some of the clinics in the country, and we have seen the impact. So I think it's an avenue we can pursue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mr. Hell, Permanent Secretary, His Excellency as well. Well, I invite you to take your seat, and thank you so much for those messages. And following up with the topic of the diaspora, in fact, today we have a panel of leaders who in their communities are doing remarkable work as part of such diaspora and actually leading the charge globally, which is one of the reasons that they're here. I was told to make sure that I highlighted the fact that Zimbabwe is going to be leading the Southern African Development Community health ministers and officials starting in November. So congratulations. We appreciate your leadership. And as part of that, obviously you have EXA, we have CANEXA, we have COSEXA, we have EXACOG, we have a lot of bodies of real excellence and influence that can guide the health of the region. But we welcome and appreciate your leadership. And once again, we appreciate you being here today. I know that I'm going to be given a class in protocol by my dear friend, Dr. Terry Reynolds and her team, but please know that if I didn't get it right, we're truly honored to have you here. All right, well, we're on our way, team. We've heard some wonderful remarks. And today, we also want to welcome such leaders from the diaspora that we've been so eager to hear as well. I would like to call, what I'll do is I'll call them up to the front, and I will begin, and we'll ask for you to give him a round of applause. I'd like to begin by introducing Dr. Wisława Polakowski. She is Peruvian, a plastic surgeon, craniofacial surgeon who's been involved in NGOs, in academia, and as of a few weeks, she was also the Director of International Cooperation of the Peruvian Ministry of Health. So last year, when we got the news of approval of Resolution 76.2, she was one of the member states voting on behalf of the resolution. Dr. Wisława Polakowski. I'd like to call friend Dr. Salome Maswime. She is an obstetrician. She's based out of Cape Town, at University of Cape Town. So many of us know her for her incredible efforts in global surgery. She leads the Center for Global Surgery at the University of Cape Town. Many of us will acknowledge that she's probably one of the youngest people to ever achieve professorship actually at that institution, and certainly one of the most delightful people you will ever meet. So please, Dr. Salome Maswime, please come. I would like to also welcome our friend, Professor Emmanuel Mekasa. Professor Emmanuel Mekasa, so many of you know quite well. He's a passionate advocate, someone who's been talking about access to safe surgical trauma anesthesia care for many years. He leads the Southern Africa Development Community Technical Expert Working Group trying to advance surgery. He's also has been part of the official delegation of Zambia. Many of you will look and remember his work back in 2016. A strong advocate for Resolution 6815 and still going strong. Professor Mekasa, please join us in the front. I'd like to also welcome our dear friend, Dr. Faustin Anitranganya. He is a plastic surgeon from Rwanda. Professor Faustin also has been heavily engaged in, as member of civil society with NGOs. He's a professor as well, so academia. He's the current chair of the Rwandan Surgical Society. He's professor, director of surgery at the University of Rwanda. We've been privileged to know his work as well through Operation Smile. He's one of those people who tends to coalesce many people together to get the job done. But Faustin, please to welcome us. Well, you're welcome. And in this one, I know that you have a program along in your chairs. And the program in your chair said that we were going to have Dr. Lee Wallace, who is actually here with us in the audience. But this is what tends to happen when you have groups of people together. Dr. Lee Wallace says, I'm going. And then Dr. Terry Reynolds said, no, I'm going. And then he said, oh, no, I'm going. And then she said, no, I'm going. And you can imagine how this permeated. And ultimately, Dr. Terry Reynolds prevailed, and we're happy to. So this is the scenario we imagine. Maybe the scenario is a little different, but either way, we're delighted to have you, Dr. Reynolds. We appreciate. So you'll know Dr. Reynolds as the unit head of the Clinical Service and Systems Division of the WHO, a tireless advocate and worker, and exemplifying the efforts of so many other members of her team, and also at the WHO, who are pulling 20 different directions, trying to advance different goals, and whom we want to support in that engagement. Dr. Reynolds, please join us in the forum. And if you see Dr. Wallace, please say hello. He's here somewhere as well. Dr. Wallace, thank you. I feel like this kind of brought memories of my basketball years, which didn't last very long because I'm not that tall. I played through high school, and when I went to college in the United States, that just wasn't a possibility. But I do have that sense that as you were calling the top A players, everybody welcomes them. And so I'm really appreciative of the applause and the welcoming that you've offered our friends and colleagues and leaders here. So I'm going to put you in the spot, and I'm just going to want to begin by asking you a very straightforward question. And I'm going to ask you to give us a very 1 or 2 sentence, very straightforward answer. And the question is, why are you here? Not in a bad way, come on, team. No, but why are you here? Why would you come all the way to Geneva from the places in which you do so much work to join us and to join this wonderful group of people who are here to hear from you?
Okay, thank you, Ruben. It's very difficult to answer this in 2 only sentences. But thank you, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this incredible side event. And thank you, everyone, for your attention, especially because my English is absolutely bad. But I'm here today because I'm convinced that this is by engaging the collective action that include partnership involving NGO, regional organizations, academia, and private sectors based in their common objective and solidarity, and amplify these synergies between us with the government sector, we can find the formula to give access to timely and quality surgical care to the population within and across our regions.
Thank you, Dr. Rizal. That's actually pretty good. That's a couple of sentences and a little bit more. You know,
It's a long sentence.
so Latinos, we tend to speak some more, so she did quite well. Congratulations. Dr. Salome was please.
I'll give you an African analogy. So back home, when you are a village chief, you believe you are running the world from your village. And so as an obstetrician, in my years becoming senior and senior, I thought I was running the world in obstetrics from my village back home. But I soon realized that there are places where people are making real decisions, and those decisions get filtered down back to us back home. So my first encounters a few years ago with WHO was realizing that there's a huge world of people that are involved in decision-making and directing where the world is going. And as protocols change, as decisions are changed, these get filtered back to that village back home. So I'm here because I think I need to be part of a bigger village that's making significant contributions, and not sitting in my village back home thinking I'm changing the world when the change is actually being influenced elsewhere.
Thank you very much. Prof. Casa?
Okay. Thanks, Kay. I'm here because I was invited, and I accepted the invitation because the topic of discussion is really key. It's, I think, an aspect that we have never really looked at in our work to try and improve surgical care. And so I felt honored to come and share my thoughts about what we can do, and also to hear from my colleagues on how we can do this together, because it's always a collective, it's collective work. It's not something that any one person, any one country, or any one sector can do alone. And then the area we work in is always changing. It's constantly changing. COVID came, all of a sudden, a lot of things changed. So you can never know it all. And so I'm humbled to be here.
Standing, Professor. Thank you very much. Professor Faustin, why are you here?
Do you want me to answer the same question? I was hoping you were arriving to me when you are tired.
You got some energy left. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for the invitation. Look at this panel. So look at these amazing people. So sitting here, just like I'm sitting, it's worth to, the only, that is all worth to come. So thank you for the honor to be able to meet all these amazing people. However, that is not the only reason that I'm here. I feel that I have a confession to make to you. You know, I feel that me and you, we have been talking about global strategy for quite long. And this is between me and you, don't repeat it.
I keep it secret.
I think we should stop talking about it and actually start doing it. Thank you.
Dr. Terry Reynolds, why are you here? Other than fighting Dr. Lee Wallace for it.
So this doesn't count as my sentence, but can we stop for a minute on the basketball and say you really should have had Emily in the audience, who's also here from our team. So she's really the basketball player. So I'm here because you're here. That's it. My boss is sitting in the front row, so His Excellency, that is my job. So what governments and countries ask for is what we're doing here. I'm also here because of something that each of you said, Wisława, that we have common objectives, and because I believe very deeply in solidarity. Salome said it in another way, that needs come from villages, and I really believe that we are as interdependent on the global level as any village. Emmanuel, as he does, is calling to us for action, as did Faustin, and that is really why I'm here, to try to, a couple of you mentioned the amazing people in this room, to see how we can actually harness this to action, to doing, by listening to people who have needs. Yeah, and it really is that simple from the point of view of WHO. I'm here because you're here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reynolds. So using words like solidarity and interdependence are actually perfect for the topic that we've asked you to help us address, which is amplifying synergies between NGOs, multilaterals, and academia. So I would like to maybe start by asking Dr. Wisława, and actually before I get there, I'm going to ask a question to the audience. Raise your hand if you've had surgery at some point in life. Wow. Or two hands if you have two. Honestly, look around. It's pretty unbelievable. That's really the vast majority of us. So we sit in Geneva in a room in front of the beautiful lake, enjoying the ability that we have to access those services. So going back, that just centers us. And going back to the call to action, I'll go back to this topic of synergies. Dr. Wisława, what is the scenario of the surgical patients in Peru?
Well, Peru suffers from an unfunded healthcare system with a serious deficiencies, including poor primary care, outdated hospitals, infrastructures, and underpaid health professionals. It's a very similar situation for all of the countries in Latin America. In addition, the human resources are centralized in the big cities with a low density of professionals in the periphery. This situation has created a backlog of surgeries. The majority of this backlog has in ophthalmologic, gynecologic, cardiovascular, orthopedic, and other specialties. And moreover, of the 50% of the hospital equipment are in inadequate condition, needs upgrading or replacing. The Minister of Health has hard work to address this problem, strengthening the primary healthcare system and working to improving condition of the healthcare professional. But in addition, our diverse geography, who range from the Pacific coast to the mountain hills and the Amazon jungle, makes sometimes the accessibility to the healthcare extremely difficult and preclude a proper and well-timed management of patients, even under the most optimal healthcare condition. This is our problem, no? But the most important is that Peru is considered now upper middle income country, and we are not seen as a country in need of support. However, we are a country with a big gap of inadequate resources. Many of our inhabitants live in bad condition, multi-general housing, and at very deep poverty, and they are ones of the most deeply affected by the deficits of our health system. This is our reality.
Thank you so much. So important messages out there, because thinking about Peru as a upper middle income country, sometimes we start thinking the job is done and we move on to somewhere else. And yet you highlighted a wide array of needs for which partnership and collaboration do deserve. I will say, Dr. Veslao, your English is really good. If you want to invite any of our friends here to come to Peru and speak Spanish, let's do that.
Thank you.
Dr. Salome, when we talk about needs, and I've heard you speak about this in the past with such passion, you have done so much to, as you mentioned, be sort of close to the communities and the villages. But one of the areas in which we've seen you shine is in the passionate commitment to education. Why would you embed yourself so much so in this area?
Thank you very much. And just to give a bit of background, so I head up the Global Surgery Division at the University of Cape Town, and our area of contribution is in global surgery education. We run a wide range of programs with masters in global surgery, launching next year for the first time an MPH with specialization in global surgery. For a PhD, we teach undergrad students, and we also teach an executive leadership course in the business school in global surgery. And some of our students who are very senior in this room right now. But and we've got 2 students from Zimbabwe, I just had to mention, and these are very senior people who are involved. It's an executive leadership course, so we target senior leaders. I was very excited when I listened to you, because we also have been hoping we are contributing in some way also to our neighbors in Zimbabwe. But my ethos when I joined global surgery, with a background in obstetrics and gynae, with a PhD in obstetrics and gynecology, and moved into a department of surgery, not to deliver babies, but rather to develop an academic program in global surgery, was realizing that unless you take this movement and this energy into something that you package into an academic program, then you'll be able to move it from generation to generation. And that's why I felt the biggest investment would be in developing this into something that you can teach to students, to undergrads, postgrads, etc. Now, for me, my biggest area of interest, of course, is teaching about surgical systems, because even our public health specialists, some of them have never been into a surgical theater. We teach students who talk about their own personal experiences in theater. They're not talking about a surgical system, and yet they are going to advise us and ministers, etc., on the future of surgical systems. So you have to teach not only the surgeons, but you also have to teach the public health specialists. But my biggest area, I think, is leadership. You can't outsource leadership. You can't donate leadership. You can't run a leadership for another country. We can donate equipment. We can take surgeries and operate, but you cannot outsource leadership. And our leaders are often not trained or prepared to run health systems. Our leaders often have been taught anatomy, physiology, pathology, and all of this, and then you expect them to fix the nation's problems. It's not going to work. So we felt that an important investment we needed to bring was teaching about surgical leadership, health systems leadership, and getting the surgeons and those working in health systems, including the policymakers, we've got politicians in our classes as well, to come and learn either about surgery or about leading systems. And we feel that in that way, you start to change the next generation and change how people think and how they work, and you give them capacity to make better decisions for the future. Thank you.
What can I say? Yeah, you absolutely cannot outsource leadership, and you're right. I still remember my public health class in medical school. It was a real snoozer. You were ready to sleep. How many of you actually have had positions of influence, but oh, actually, let me ask you, how many of you have had actual training in policy, in advocacy, or on health systems? It's really good. There's quite a few of you, but not as many as we might think in a setting like this, right? And so it is a reality. What a privilege to have someone like you committed to this important endeavor. So we have Professor Manuel Macasa. I wanted to also ask you how some of the passions which we have seen you ever since I remember you. There's this passion on policy engagement, on advocacy, and so much so that someone actually said in the crowd, "You don't need a mic, Emmanuel. Just can get going." But you know, when we put all those jokes aside, there's a real commitment, and we'd love to understand from you, why did you decide to engage in policy?
I got involved in policy, or I work a lot in policy, mostly because it's the only way we can translate commitments into something that touches the patient. As you know, at the WHO and in the UN system, we have had a lot of political commitments. Our ministers come, they commit, they want to do something for their people, for their country, for the region. But then how do you translate that commitment that the Honorable Minister makes here or at the World Health Assembly to something that touches a patient in Masvingo, in Zimbabwe? How do you translate that? There is always a big gap. And that's why sometimes you see that we will be running and producing resolutions and resolutions every day, but how many really are translated into something on the ground? It's very easy for us to get carried away at the global regional level with fighting over resolutions, taking different positions, and we produce a lot of them. If you want, you can go and check how many of those resolutions have we actually translated into tangible action on the ground. Very little. And it's a pity that, in fact, even in academics, we've never really analyzed that. You know, how many, somebody can do a PhD on that. How many resolutions has WHO passed that have actually been translated into something on the ground? I mean, you tell me. Very little. Now, when I got involved in pushing the agenda of surgical improvement, it came from my government and my country and my personal experience working in Zambia. And when I was in residency, we flew around the country, and the situation at the lower level, at primary level of care at the district hospital was miserable. You know, surgical conditions, most of them, well, if they don't kill you, they leave you physically handicapped. If you're physically handicapped, you cannot earn a living in Africa because we use our hands and our legs to earn a living. We don't make money online. So it was affecting a lot of our people. Our governments really want to improve. They want to develop. But how can you develop with a handicapped population if we keep adding to the physical disability? Nothing against the physical disability, but we must try to avert that. That's why I took it upon myself with the support of my government to negotiate the resolution 6815. And we didn't want to do it for show, so that we say we as Zambia or me as Macasa negotiated the resolution. No. And we took that resolution from here down to SADC, and we had the support from our member states who still believe because they want to do something. But again, how do they do it? With limited capacity amongst themselves. They came together as a region and recommitted at regional level. Then they took this down to the countries. At national level, the minister you heard, Zimbabwe, developed its national surgical obstetric anesthesia strategy. That's the only way that Zimbabwe can now map out the roadmap of how they can translate the political commitment that the minister makes, that the government makes, into a program that the Ministry of Health is going to run, and then it will be a service that I can go to and get a laparotomy. That's why I work in policy, because it's the only issue. You need a roadmap. Surgery is complex. It affects everyone. It's at different levels. It has too many stakeholders, and you can't do it just ad hoc.
Yeah. So you can tell the passion. Just in case. And this connects back to also the words we heard from our leaders from Zimbabwe, just asking for that diaspora, and always once again acknowledging that you have that leadership that we're willing to support. And there are examples out there. I think some of you at some point mentioned to me the difference between a pilot, a lot of those resolutions going to a pilot, and then I heard a different. I think Manager Maha mentioned, no, let's talk about initial implementation, because then we have a longer commitment. Whether something didn't work, then you go on. And so, Professor Faustin, I would want to ask you, because I've known that you are one of the leaders in Rwanda who's always connecting and making sure things are actually moving forward, coordinated. Maybe there's something you might want to share on Rwanda, on whether there's been a pilot or initial implementation or not, from your experience.
Thank you, Ruben. So you're not so friendly to bring me after Prof. Makasa. No. No, but let me start with an analogy or a say that we have back home as well. So we say that the longest journey starts by just a step. And we should not be shy to start the first step. Even we can even fall, but start it. If you never start, you'll never reach there. So I think I have been in this for some years now. As you ask me to share probably a success story, if I can call it like that, but something doable or tangible that people can do. Back in 2015, I met a colleague. So sure hazard, like here. And we were discussing, and he had to know that I'm a surgeon, yes. And at that time I was heading a program. This was general surgery program of that time. I was a program director. Then as we were discussing, we say, oh, how can we work together? How can we support you? How can we do everything for you? So I listened, but to tell you the truth, I was not so hot about that, because I don't believe that anyone can do things for us. I think we can do it for us, and probably we can get people around us, support us doing what we plan to do. So that's where I'm joining him, that we really need to have plans. And then from that discussion, I met another colleague a few months later, and we started what I was calling a sustainable plan to run what he was running before we met. Because what he was proposing was traditional way of coming in a country, do some surgeries, and go. And then by then he was thinking he's supporting, and he was really doing, but there was a better way of doing it. And I told them, can you come in a program? So there is a structured program. We can give you a module or anything you pick, but do something structured. And then if you build capacity, someone who will use that capacity, I think is much more interesting. But if you build capacities to anyone you meet, that is not interesting. So we started that way. A few years later, like 3 years, there's some people we start again and say, look, we have been building capacity of these people. How can we start a standalone program now and do it formally from A to Z? Say, yes, it can be possible. So we submitted to the university. So those who coming from my university, I have an academic background. So we submitted to the university for approvals. It take long. But that was really where we started seeing that NGOs may not be having as be patient as we in academia we are. They want that they have an idea, they implement it tomorrow. If it doesn't work, it's okay. It's not something else. But I was telling them, no, we are part of a country, we have to follow rules and regulations, we have to go through approvals. It may take one year to get approved. We say, no, 1 year is too much. Okay, don't worry. When we have been seeking for approvals, we will be implementing a few things. But we got the program approved. The program we started, that was about a plastic surgery training program back in Rwanda. And many people, even from my part, were saying, no, that cannot be possible. So you cannot train plastic surgeons without having plastic surgeons. I tell them, no. Yes, we have one or two, but we don't need only plastic surgeons to train plastic surgeons. We need others, and we will get them. So we started that program. But as we started it, we also built something interesting around it, because we are thinking that you can grow one leg and you think you can walk. As you train surgeons, think about anesthesia, think about nurses, think about biomedical people, think about the system. And then we did so. So a few years later, now as I'm speaking, if you want, we can develop a little bit. We, in the department of surgery that I'm chairing now, we have around 13 surgical training programs with over 100 trainees. And all started by that single discussion. But from that NGO, I added another one, I added a third one, a fourth one. And now even the ministry and everyone understands that power of collaboration, but most importantly, to have a goal, to have a roadmap, and to have someone championing all that, really caring for those details. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Congratulations on that. Dr. Terry Reynolds, after hearing your co-panelists talk about so many things that they wanted to highlight and care about, may I ask you, from your perspective of someone who's been so committed to supporting countries, providers and communities at the WHO level with your team, including my co-basketball player, Emily, what would you like to share with them? And maybe I understand there might be some good news that you might want to hint at.
So thanks, Ruben. So there's a lot of different things that people have commented on, and I guess what I'll do is I'll try to express some of what I've heard and how it comes together in the processes that we are kind of directly engaged in. Several of our colleagues from Zimbabwe, Excellency, Permanent Secretary, Ambassador, all of you in your different ways spoke to the surgical backlog. So one thing, context, I want to take a minute on. Elective surgery was the single most disrupted health service in COVID. And we've come out of the COVID period and we are not far out of it. And we've come out of the COVID period with a surgical backlog that we will never overcome in our lifetimes unless we do something entirely different. So you heard about waiting lists going to 2026. That's one thing. It's likely to be further than that because we will have increasing need at the same time. So unless we change what we're doing, we are not in the same place that we were before the pandemic. There are many countries that already had a backlog. We can't keep doing things in the same way. So that's one element of context. The other is that the narrative has changed, and understandably, even rightly to some extent, the entire focus is on how do we protect ourselves from the next infectious threat. That has had a challenging consequence, which is that our vision on emergency response on hazards, surgery has fallen out of that. And that's a huge problem because before we were at the end of the pandemic, we had major earthquakes, for example, in Turkey, in Syria. So we do that at our peril. So I think it's important to recognize the context that we are in. The other part of the context that you hear about is what Wisława flagged, is that even in a country that is relatively speaking high on the continuum of resources, we have two things that are very important: fundamental health system gaps. That includes the zone where you want early recognition in primary care, and then outdated hospitals. So the idea, the pathway itself is weak. We have to focus on pathways. But she also raised the idea of the social determinants of health, of the role that it plays, housing, poverty, and I would add transportation, because that's one of the biggest issues we see. From Salome's point of view, we heard about the need to propagate to the next generation, capacity building. From Emmanuel, the need to get from the necessary but not sufficient substrate to delivery. And then in Rwanda, the need to set a roadmap, set a goal that is done at least national to subnational level. So the good news that you're talking about is related to each of these domains. The resolution 76.2 that you've mentioned last year, the emergency critical and operative care for UHC and protection from health emergencies. The member states, the countries came together and said, look, it's great. We want this resolution. They put it out. They supported it. It was unanimous. It was extraordinarily well supported. And then this year they came back understanding the gap that Emmanuel talks about and said, no, we actually want a member state document that is a global strategy and action plan. We want a formal coordinated strategy across partners, academics, governments that will define very concretely how we get from this resolution to people who need care. This will not in itself solve the problem. The gap that Emmanuel mentioned is very, very large. There are many, many steps. However, so we're a very operational team at WHA. We have actually looked at a lot of the gaps that he's talking about. We have on previous mandates, we have mapped all of those into country narratives, into country stories, and country explanations of how they achieved those policy mandates. So that is very important for us, for the countries to tell us how they have done this. What about that was important to them? So we have some, not everything we need, but some experience to build on with other policy mandates. Each of the domains that we've talked about, we will, with you, be fleshing out. So the resolution activates all those domains. Salome's domain of propagating knowledge, but it does it in an extremely general way. The domain that Faustin mentioned of national planning and subnational execution, again, activates it in an incredibly general way. The need to address pathways and social determinants of health. All of this is explicit in the resolution. That is a very helpful foundation to make it easier for you to advocate and act. In no way will it do that for you. Emmanuel is completely right. In no way will it achieve our goals. One step closer to achieving our goals is what happened last night, is the unanimous passing of a call for a global strategy and action plan. Now we have to do that. So the countries write the resolutions, WHO brings all of you together with the countries to create a global strategy and action plan. So everything that you're asking for, everything that you're calling for, we have to do that, and we have to do it explicitly. We have to formulate it properly, well, and clearly, and we have to commit, every one of us, to executing that. So that is where we are now as of last night. I think that's a big success, but it's a piece of success. It opens a door to success. It is not in itself success. So unless every one of you in this room is ready to work with us for the next 18 months to get that on paper, and then for the next decade, this is a global strategy and action plan for 2026 to 2035. This can be an extraordinary instrument for us, but only if we use it. In itself, it will do nothing. Really, by itself, it will do nothing. So we need to make a decision here tonight to begin with, and then we need to make that decision over and over again over the next year with all of our counterparts, and in particular, the colleagues of His Excellency. The Assembly has told us what to do, which is His Excellency and his peers, but now we really have to do it. And unless we do, it won't happen. So I think it's good news, Ruben, but I think it's potential for good news. That's what I would say.
Just more such a thing. Oh, well, close it. It is wonderful to hear the good news. I do remember at some point someone telling me, hey, if you start celebrating and patting yourself a lot in the back, you start going backwards. I understand this is it sounds like, Toreno, like that you're talking about a call to action plan, a call to action to support the plan, to advance the global action plan.
Well, so
That's gonna get us there, right?
yeah, look, there's a whole lot of words at WHO. My first week at WHO, I got an email and I looked at it and it had like 12 acronyms in 4 lines. And I was like, I have no idea what this means, the entire email. So there's a lot of jargon, but let me be really clear what this means. So 194 member states just gave us a mandate to come together and do 2 things. Define a set of strategic areas for action, which actually this group of people has just done. Those are the usual domains. It's not rocket science. These are the areas in which we know we need to act. So we will formulate those. And then we have the opportunity to create in writing a set of actions with the input of the entire world. So the member state process, and my colleagues can speak much more specifically to this, that will be extremely structured. The ministers and their delegations will lead this. This will be a formal consultation led by people like those in the front row. It will be online, it will be public, they will put in their input, et cetera. The partner consultation process will be as extensive as we make it together. So we already have a commitment of about 10 major international meetings where we will do, we started actually at the European trauma surgery meeting last month in Lisbon. And then we have a series of structured consultations, and we welcome your ideas on that. We've already been discussing with Operation Smile. There will be one at World Trauma Congress, et cetera, et cetera. So we will propagate all that out to you. And you will have the opportunity in every possible form to flag the activities that, number one, you think will achieve the mandate of the resolution. Number two, to share your experiences so you can say, I am an NGO, this is what we can do. But what we also want to hear from you is, what have you seen that has stopped your work? Even if it's not an action you can take, you have had experience about what barriers you would like governments to remove. So you may not be a government, but you may have privileged information about what actions governments could take to allow you to act. So we want both of those kinds of pieces of information from you. And there will be really 5 or 10 different modalities in which you can give us that information.
Sounds like we have a wonderful opportunity to engage. So I have a ton of questions for you, and the time is flying. And but I want to maybe skip the normal order, and I would love it if some of the members in the audience will have any questions at this stage. There's been a lot said. Anyone? Martina?
Thank you. I have a question regarding all of this, and especially the area of education and teaching the next generation, or well, the actual generation, about these topics. And I think it's a question for all of you. What specific aspects a curriculum on this needs to have to teach the next generation?
Someone else? We can move on another one, and then we'll spread the question in different.
Yes, so what you're asking is a very contentious question, which can get me into a lot of trouble, but I'll answer. 3 weeks ago, I think when we had the International Congress in Innovations in Global Surgery, we actually had a consensus breakfast. We were discussing consensus on global surgery competencies. And the consensus was that there is no consensus. But that's because, you know, how global surgery started is very different in different places, right? And originally, I think those who started global surgery, there was a lot more travel to it, travel, operating, making a difference. As the years went, it was influencing policy. Then for those of us who started global surgery in LMICs, you know, as LMIC leaders who didn't have to get onto a plane to get anywhere, you know, and even today people are asking, how do you do this without traveling? But the reality was health systems strengthening is not what is part of the curriculum to become a surgeon. And so the need for us to look beyond the day-to-day operating and the surgical skills was what became more apparent. How do we work with policymakers? What is the policy? All of these, infrastructure, etc. So if you were to ask me, what are the competencies in global surgery? You now talk about things like advocacy, innovation, research, a number of capacity building, a number of things that we've developed in our education framework. But the reason why I feel this discussion is very important for us as a global surgery community for the future is because we are all developing curriculums in different parts of the world, and these curriculums are very different from each other. In some institutions, when you talk about teaching about global surgery, there may be a global surgery ethics, but some are really extremely clinical. And a cesarean section in South Africa is the same as a cesarean section in a high-income country. Yes, you may want to teach about how to do it with less resources, but the surgery is the same across. But health systems differ, across. Every health system is different. And the parts that we really need to teach about needs to be about surgical health systems. So I don't have an answer, but I think I've answered.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. So I've been told that His Excellency and an honorable might have to step out. But before we do that, Dr. Makasa was reminding me that he really want to make a 2-sentence plea and request to you. It's a 2-sentence plea, right?
Honorable Minister, first of all, like he has said, we're very grateful to have you here, and we congratulate you and the Republic of Zimbabwe as chairs of the SADC. We as SADC, and on behalf of all the global surgeons here, we're pleading and requesting that you could help us ensure the agenda of surgery on the SADC Health Ministers Conference is placed, and also in the EXA, because if this topic is not brought back to you so we can update you on what we're doing, and also you can provide guidance on how we can move forward, then of course our effort is in futility because we can't do anything without you, the member states. So as chair, we are kindly requesting that the Republic of Zimbabwe maintains this agenda item in the SADC Health Ministers Conference and also at the 50th commemoration of the EXA Health Community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, we're truly thankful and honored for your presence. Please, a round of applause for our young friends. Okay. Okay, we have a few more minutes, if you may, and I wanted to maybe ask one more question to, unless you want to tackle the one on the curriculum.
I wanted to.
I'll be in trouble if I don't let my friend Professor Fossing
to come after Salome to say a few words about the question.
That's okay. Professor Makasa already used his token, so
yeah. So Makasa has done the politics. That's okay. Let's now speak techniques. So yeah, that is a very technical question, and I will not elaborate about the content of the curriculum because probably it may differ from context and this. But I wanted to bring something probably very close to my heart. I think you will correct me if I'm wrong. So global surgery should stop being a specialty. It should be integrated into all the surgical programs that we normally run, so that the surgeon of tomorrow, maybe they have left, they are ministers and they are surgeons, but I don't think there is any course that they had into their training, preparing them to sit in these seats and to speak like they speak. So we really need to think that way, so that we produce a comprehensive surgeon of tomorrow, which is conversant with all these topics without like creating a club of a few people.
thank you. Standing. Thank you for Fossing. Many of you before talk about an interconnectedness. Again, the idea of synergies and all of this combined, they're seizing different opportunities. So I would love to ask you, I'm so Bum, the time is flying. So, but I want to make sure that our audience has chances for more questions for you. I would love to ask you to maybe give us some closing thoughts on what examples of interconnectedness you hold close to you that have made some headway into the opportunities, and what would you like to see for the future?
Okay. Okay. I was the General Director of International Cooperation of the Minister of Health in Peru twice. And I had the opportunity to work about the looking for help, because remember, our country is not seen like a country who needs support, but actually we need support. So we found two different types of cooperation. The triangle cooperation, when one organization or country support with financial resources, the other NGO or agency or different private local persons provide the human resources and technical. And the third is the government who receive and provide the thing that we provide. And one of these very important type of cooperation is one hospital that we have in the hills of the Andes in Peru, in Andahuaylas, the Hospice Sullana. He is supported by German cooperation with NGO, with German doctors and volunteers from different parts of the world, for 3 years working for free, and provide the support for a big community. And they provide more than 3,000 different assistance for the community, not only medicine, as well as different surgical programs. So this is one of our success triangle cooperation. The other was because we are the cooperation don't seem as like needs for this, but the other type is by south to south. The south to south is important for us, and one important of these examples is in between the borders of Peru and Ecuador. We are in Peru and Ecuador. We perform surgical programs, providing surgery for cleft lip and palate patients, regardless of the nationalities, and supporting by Operation Smile Ecuador, Operation Smile Peru, and the one combination of the government of Peru and Ecuador. And this is possible to bring different solution for this big problem that we have in our country. And other type of these examples are in between the borders in Peru with Colombia or Peru with Chile, because we are trying, we have the support with the emergency in medicine, but this year we are improve this program to support with emergency in surgeries. So this is another type of important cooperation south-south in my country. But I think this kind of cooperation is good because help us to resolve some problems in between with our partners, our countries, border countries, and with the support of multilaterals or big organization who help us to resolve this.
Thank you, Dr. Vislava. Dr. Salome, let me just be brief.
Yeah.
What would you like to see into the future? And if there's something you want to share from your prep.
Had another answer.
Okay, interconnectedness. Back to interconnectedness.
Yes.
And maybe what you want to see in
Talk
the
about
future.
the future. Yeah.
Okay.
But as a university, I think there are three things that people come to us for. It's education, it's research, it's expert opinion. And you know, one of the things I'll just give quick examples as UCT. So when it comes to education, a lot of the surgical training and capacity building, we're university, we train surgeons. That's what we do. And so a lot of these partnerships, especially with NGOs and with governments as well, have been around surgical training. And I think it's important because, you know, we've seen some patterns where, you know, NGOs can go into a country and do the training themselves. But if you're not partnering with the academic institutions, then you're not developing a sustainable, you know, training program. Then with the research, you know, everything is data. When we've engaged with ministries of health, they blame us as surgeons. They say, you're not giving us data. That's why we're not making decisions, because surgeons are doing surgery instead of doing research. And so the idea of surgical scientists who are doing the research and bringing the numbers that are going to inform. You know, ministers of health don't make decisions on their own. You know, they have advisors, they've got experts. It's usually us as clinicians that are providing the information that they need. They don't just wake up and write this stuff. You know, they get that information. But also expert opinion is an important contribution that we bring, and a lot of the advocacy work. So whilst, yes, our job is to teach, but I think through partnerships with government and NGOs, etc., we've been able to contribute to implementation science, innovation, advocacy. And that's the unique position that we have as an academic institution, and would like to continue doing that into the future.
Ah, well, I like it's incorporated into the future into it. And Emmanuel, the advocate for policy engagement, you immediately jump at the opportunity. What would you like, just 1 minute, because we're running out of time, 1 minute answer. What would you like to see into the future?
Yes, and so we have created a lot of platforms that can enable the synergy and the partnerships, starting from SADC, and now we are covering almost the whole continent under the Pan-African Surgical Healthcare Forum. And that's a platform we create for all of you and for everybody to synergize. What would I want to see in the future? Like my colleague here said, we want to see more action. We want to see more models that can actually work. We all know that we want to do it at the district hospital, but we haven't still yet created or taken up a district where we set up the surgical systems and provide the care and monitor the metrics and the indicators to see and prove to everybody that this actually works. It improves health outcomes. It contributes to socioeconomic development of the people. The academic institutions can help us, and we can play different roles. So, and we have left this responsibility to governments. We say, oh, let's form a plan, and then they should implement. They will not implement until we show a model that can actually work, so that we can also learn from it. So I would like to see in the future that all of us here, we are very powerful. We come from very different organizations, and we have the capacity, financial and material and other resources, to put together and build a model that works, that governments can see and actually learn from. That's what I want to see in the future.
Outstanding. Energize. Professor Fausting, you complain that I put you right beside Emmanuel. What would you like to see in the future?
And you keep continuing. So I was attending another side event 2 days ago, and the discussion there was to see how if you strengthen surgery, you actually lift all the health system. And it was really quite very interesting, the discussion and the ideas that I got from those friends. So yes, that shows how things are connected. So surgery cannot be divided into multiple small things. Surgery is a surgery. And then I think we should find a holistic way of addressing surgical disparities and needs as global surgery communities. At the same time, as we probably address the workforce gaps, we should be doing something around infrastructure. We should be doing something around service delivery, doing something around financing, governance, etc. Everything at the same time. So that's what I want to see in the future. Thank you.
Everything at the same time. Dr. Terry Reynolds, you sit in a position where you came and said, almost a call to action for this global strategy and action plan. And Emmanuel makes a request, he's ready to work. I can see myself sitting in front of a minister making the same plea. I've seen a picture of Professor Faustin in front of President Kagame. I know that the same thing has happened with Professor Salome. Professor Lava has been in positions of leadership at the government. So all these things are happening at the same time. And in your position, as you see all this activity, the call to action, the promise, the notion that you have the power, how can we be of service to this notion of synergy and the vision of a plan for the future?
That's a big question.
Sorry, I'm Latin.
That's okay.
Following up there,
surprise coming from you, but so I'll do my best to just identify a couple of things. One of the things, so integration is a big word for me and it's used way too much. It's almost as bad as innovation. But I actually believe in it. And it's one of the reasons why I've held these different positions in academics in the public hospitals and for many years in Tanzania, for many years in the US. But I've chosen to work for the UN's health agency. And there is a reason for that. I believe in government very strongly. And I really do prioritize integration over some other things. It's not the only way to act. But what I mean by that is I would like to see, so universal health coverage is one of the most powerful policy levers that exists. So it is powerful to do national planning for surgery. It's powerful to do national planning for hospitals. It's powerful to do national planning for PHC. UHC is an extremely powerful policy lever. So this is just an example. We have a platform now for the first time ever. All of the surgical services across every health area are in this platform. So we have now done UHC planning with 56 countries. 54 of them have taken a comprehensive approach to their surgical services. The other two didn't because they were focusing strictly on community clinic level. So that is the only reason. So 54 countries now have explicit surgical services. So that sounds like a very concrete, wonky little thing, but it is one of the most powerful entry points. So that kind of integration, bringing surgical and anesthesia services in. The narrative about post-pandemic, it is still extremely powerful. So the idea that we need to maintain essential health services during emergencies, that EHS agenda, that I want to see surgery and anesthesia services fully integrated into that and into a definition of comprehensive readiness. We can be ready for the next virus that emerges. That doesn't mean we're ready for an earthquake. So we don't need to pretend that surgery is the solution to the virus. I had a lot of trauma surgery friends who were putting in ECMO all through the pandemic, right? So there is a role. It's not the same thing. Surgery is not the answer to the virus. The virus isn't the only kind of emergency. So the idea of comprehensive readiness gives us a much broader picture. I do really believe in this eco concept, the emergency critical operative care. I think people, it's not only about surgical patients. That is one way of looking at those people. Another way is saying people have needs for a lot of different services. There is a pathway. That tends to be how people experience it. That's just my formation. And I am a very pathway oriented person. That's not the only entry point, but it is a very powerful entry point. In terms of, and this is the last thing I'll say, last night and the mandate that we've been given, I just want to emphasize again, this is an opportunity. It is not in itself success, but it is an absolutely extraordinary opportunity. And we have not had this opportunity in this area in the last couple decades. 6815 did not provide us with this opportunity in the same structured way. So it is an extraordinary opportunity. And what I want for the future is this. So I want us to keep doing this. I want us to do it better. I want us to do it more. And whether I see you in Kuala Lumpur at ISS, whether it is through an Operation Smile convening that we're talking about, whether it is through one of those, it's this. We need to do this, but we need to do it better and we need to do it explicitly. And we need to do it with more than one country's government in the room. So these will to some extent run in parallel, but we are preaching to the choir in this room. And that's powerful. This is a good place for us to put our heads together and decide how to act together. This is not the audience that we are trying to propagate to. So we have to do this and the other. Yeah.
Well said, Dr. Cherry. So, audience, you have been extremely patient, and I know there are some questions. I left Dr. Katayuna kind of in the air in the previous one, so I'm going to start with you.
Thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful panel. My name is Katia Medani. I am a Global Surgery Policy and Advocacy Fellow from Baylor College of Medicine. I am in the only policy fellowship for global surgery that exists in the Department of Surgery, housed in a Department of Surgery. And Professor Faustin, you commented on needing to change the way we look at global surgery education. I'm also with the Association of Academic Global Surgery, and we're looking to advocate to create more education in global surgery. What I have noticed, and I recently put together a panel, hopefully it will get accepted, is that there's global surgery education fragmentation across many departments. On this panel, we have the privilege of having OBGYN and surgery both present. There are many departments of anesthesia that are included in this, many nursing programs. How do you, and this is to everyone on the panel, but starting with Professor Faustin, how do you think we should integrate all the different education models and the fields that are involved in our ecosystem, because global surgery is not just for us surgeons? Thank you.
Who wants to take that? Okay.
Yes. So thank you for the question. And I think actually we should start by outside surgery. Because for me, as she's putting it right, we know, all in this room, we know, and then it becomes like in-house discussion. But for me, global surgery is something bigger than surgery. It compensates from surgery to policymakers, to economics, to social scientists, to everyone. So we should find ways, and actually starting also putting those concepts into their curriculum, not only ours, but their curricula, so that they know about what we do. I think we should now start opening theaters and surgery to people who are not coming to get surgery, so that they know what we do. Believe me, my wife doesn't know what we do. Yeah, sometimes I feel that she
familiar feeling, Prof. Faustin.
She really doesn't, because you know the rain can rain. You are in theater. When you go out, everyone has run. There was even something terrible happened. You don't even know. So like that, you will never influence the world. So I think those people who I call the ally to us are the ones to do it for us. They should understand it and make it their own thing, so that they can do it when we are not there. So we are all potential patients. And from that standpoint, I think the most important thing is a grassroots kind of advocacy, where from lay people, lawyers, everyone should know this. So if we can now ask our institutions from academia, try to have that as a cross-cutting content, even from primary schools, secondary schools, people should be discussing this. Otherwise, we never make it. Thank you.
We have another question here.
I have a comment mostly, and I'm Mai Makoka. I'm based in Geneva, working with the World Council of Churches. I originally come from Malawi. My previous job there, I was the executive director of the Christian Health Association of Malawi. And in that position, I was able to coordinate camps with Operation Smile. We'll send out leaflets to the churches and say, if you have this kind of cases, please send them forward. We have these dates. And so that facilitated the case identification, the mobilization, and all that. When I came here, I think last year, I made a program visit to Ghana, and I visited the church hospital there. They have a fistula unit. And so I was asking how it started. Actually, it was Mercy ships. They were going to dock there, and they asked the midwife to identify cases of obstetric fistula. And this midwife said, we trained in Ghana, actually also did postgraduate training. And she said, there are no fistula cases here. The Mercy ship challenged her, okay, please just try and let us know. And she was surprised that in her own village, she found 4 cases. And that has grown. Now they have a standalone fistula unit. I'm driving at collaboration with faith communities. We mentioned, I think, something, I would say, an additional dimension to these is actually primary prevention. And the faith communities may be a very important ally in primary prevention, to decongest the cases, to decongest it to free up manpower, free up time, and free up other medical resources. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Well, I need to be the villain because I know that there are a few people who are very, very eager to. Do you want a couple more questions, or you want to talk about it over wine? And so, is this a popular demand? So I'm going to ask for your forgiveness. This is we did start a bit late, but this has been an extraordinary conversation. I will ask for you to please stick around, ask your colleagues and friends about their thoughts over wine. Enjoy the networking, the gathering. I would say one more thing before I ask our friend Dr. Walt Johnson to close this event. Only a couple of weeks ago, I was in Ecuador, and a man from a rural community had to cross the border, made it to the policy forum in which we were, and he shared with us his journey and the conditions of his community. It took me less time to get from Virginia to Quito, Ecuador, than it took him to reach the capital city. But that is a symbol of a journey that many people try to make when trying to access emergency, critical, and operative care. And that's where we should have our thoughts consistently as we look to synergize. I'm going to ask you to give this incredible panel a huge round of applause. I think you would agree with me that if this was a basketball team, they will be the all-stars. Thank you very, very much to all of you. Dr. Walt Johnson, we will ask for you to say a few departing comments.
Thank you, Ruben. There will be very few comments, I can assure you. I don't know how you can top this panel, and I really applaud all of you for being here, and thank you very much. And I thank you for attending. You know, one of the most dangerous roles in this world is between people and their cocktails. And I don't want to be in that role for very long, but truly the take-home message is if any of us want to try to get across the finish line by ourselves, we will fail. But all of us collectively can really synergize in amazing ways and get across the finish line, maybe not in our lifetime, but eventually. So I'd like to thank you again for being here. There is cocktails, wine, food. Please help yourselves. Please network. Our panelists will be around. Ask them questions, but thank you.